rich and complicated, and it's rich and complicated because we are squeezing buildings to do more with code, and we have actors asking buildings, judging success or failure by new criteria, and we're kind of going, whoa, okay, this is a lot to deal with. Okay, second part. At the same time, we are asking questions about the stuff that we build our buildings out of that we never asked before. And so the other big controversy, actually probably the big controversy, the energy part, people don't even understand how, anyone understand that one yet. This one is the one people kind of understand, and this is where all the politics are. So, and it's actually the third one. So what we've been, we have, as you guys know, we have gotten ourselves into, some issues that are maybe even bigger than we are with regard to a very simple belief. We have the simple belief that people should know what's in the stuff that they make buildings out of. So in other words, materials transparency. And the idea that people should know what's in the stuff that buildings are made out of turns out to be a radical proposition. And so if you click on the next one for a second, the idea behind materials in V4, despite what people may or may not understand about it, the issue is that we're envisioning a progression. The first progression is we basically have kind of bread and butter green building problem. We have a market failure. The market failure is because if you don't know what is in this stuff, you can't take reasonable action to manage your risk or to manage your resource allocation. Like, should I invest more in removing something? Should I invest, well, I don't have any information, right? So the first idea is we need disclosure about what the ingredients are that are in building products and whether they are potentially hazardous. So it's a hazard-based approach. And so the first step is transparency. The second step is you take that transparency information and you subject it to screening. So you basically say, okay, of those things you told me, which ones are known to be threats to health or other kinds of things? And once you establish some of these things are hazards, what is an alternatives assessment? What else could I use? And then after that assessment, I'm gonna optimize my choice. Of course, you're gonna build the building out of something. You are going to get some materials. You're gonna build the building. So we're not saying you shouldn't build a building out of stuff. The building will be made out of stuff. The question is what stuff, and are you informed about what that stuff is? And to a degree, are you informed across the entire life cycle, from the extraction to the manufacture to the in-use to the end of life where it comes back around? And so, can you click again? This leads us to a soup of things that most of our professionals have not had a chance to think about. This leads us to things like health product declarations and environmental product declarations and green screen assessments and a variety of questions about materials that we haven't had to ask before. And it all comes down to what's in this stuff. Is it hazardous? Are there alternatives? And which one should I choose?
Can I ask you about the alternative assessment? Because in all the literature and the credit language, I see the transparency side, there's all that requirement, and I see the disclosure, and I see the optimization. But I don't know where is sandwiched in there is that alternative assessment.
That's a good point. So that's green screen at the moment. Like if you think of the most specific, by doing a green screen assessment, that is the idea of the idea of an assessment.
And is it the hazard screening gives you alternatives, or is your responsibility once you've identified those hazards to do the? That's
a good question. So I think in practice, it's having hazard assessments of alternatives and comparing them that gives you the alternatives assessment.
Okay.
And the problem that people are trying to get around is this unfortunate substitution, regrettable substitution problem, right? Where you took out like the current political one is you took out BPA from water bottles, and now you put in BPS. And it turns out that it's like from the headlines, BPS is equally or more toxic than BPA. It's just that we hadn't studied BPS until we did BPA, right? And it's part of the understanding is that, as many of you guys know, that we have this regulatory regime which is kind of, I think most people don't appreciate, which is saying the way we regulate chemicals is they are presumed safe until proven guilty. And we are the lab rats in this scenario. Like, basically, chemicals are released into commerce. We experience them in the environment. We then discover that they are bioaccumulating, and then we look at them and we say, boy, these could be bad. And so that's a societal choice we made, and most people assume that if the chemicals were truly bad, the government would protect us from the chemicals. well, that's actually not the thing that we invented. And so as a society, we didn't do it that way. We did it the other way, which is they're presumed safe, and then we figured them out. And so we are trying to reverse some very long-standing, 30-year plus issues of environmental policy. They are very complicated under the hood. They involve issues in material science, toxicology, chemistry, and so forth. And as a group, you know, most of us didn't get in this because we were chemists. We didn't like chemistry. We didn't get in this because we were public health people. We didn't get in this because we were toxicologists. And so now we're being asked as professionals to do something like that, to ask for ingredients, and then which generally yields one of three answers. No, go away. I don't know, or sure. And then you're actually, all of which are actually problematic in their own way. So, so again, there's not a whole lot of answers here. What I can tell you is that what we see in this is a progression, and we understand that we're trying to get people to work their way through this progression. This is not, and actually in contrast to what folks might feel like, this is not, we actually are very actively seeking out ways that don't involve banning and red listing compounds. There are no red lists, there are no banned stuff in weed. And the reason that there isn't, and actually there's a fairly thoughtful reason why there isn't, it's because when you ban something on a red list, what you are effectively saying is that every alternative is superior to the one you banned. And in most cases, that just doesn't prove to be true. And so the idea, so actually, although it may feel empowering to ban, you know, these 30 chemicals, what you're saying is that everything you could choose other than those is better. And if you really are confident in that, then you can have it on a red list. But if you have that kernel of doubt that that's not true in this case, and there's so many examples of when that's not true, that's why we're trying to encourage a process to do this, and trying to encourage, like we said, not to stop at transparency. Transparency is not the end, but transparency is the beginning of a process that's hopefully going to make more informed decisions. And so I'm happy to talk more about the details, but that issue of materials transparency is a long road. If you go back to where, you know, before we knew what energy modeling is, before we knew what an owner's project requirement was or a commissioning document, and we said, how do you deal with energy? That's where we are with this. We're inventing a whole new process to do this. So that could take the whole time to talk about, but I just want to give you a taste of what's going on.